you drive fast?
Not him, just driver.
Hi. You You all set, sir?
Let's go.
All right. Good morning. Sorry, that's loud. Good morning. Welcome to the Borough of Metuchen. We are deeply appreciative that the governor and speaker have chosen to hold this event here. I'm Mayor Jonathan Bush, and we know how incredibly important gun control is to so many people throughout the state, and it is a great honor that among all places you have chosen Middlesex County, and in particular, Metuchen. I want to welcome our council president, Linda Koskowski, and our councilman-elect, Joel Branch. This exact location has especially significant meaning to the people in our community because it was in this plaza in front of our Borough Hall on March 24th, 2018, in the wake of the events of Parkland, Florida, that students from Metuchen High School led hundreds of people in a rally against gun violence. Just a few weeks later, many of those Metuchen High School students led their classmates in a walkout to this very space. These students spoke loudly and demanded change. Some of our Metuchen High School students are here with us today. Now here we are, once again, both literally and figuratively, in the wake of yet another senseless tragedy, this time in Oxford, Michigan. What a model this is for the young people in our community and across the state to know that their actions and their voices can lead to real and meaningful change. It is now my great privilege to welcome an individual who has dedicated his life's work to effecting change in his own community and throughout the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Akila Sherrills.
Good morning. Such an honor to be here today. Akila Sherrills. I grew up in a war zone in South Los Angeles, witnessed things that no child should ever be subject to. But was fortunate to have good mentors and relationships with people around me that I was able to connect with many of the friends that I grew up with in what many social justice activists call the longest running war in the history of this country, which is urban street gangs, and organize a peace treaty that changed the quality of life in our neighborhood. In the first 2 years of our work, gang homicides dropped 44%. The city adopted our strategy and went on to develop a model known as community-based public safety. In 2014, I was tapped by Mayor Ras J. Baraka to come to Newark to build out his community-based public safety initiative, the Newark Community Street Team. And it's been such an honor to serve with the men and women in the city of Newark as over the past 6 years, we've built a comprehensive strategy, coordinating with law enforcement, and now I've had 6 consecutive years in a row of decreases of homicides and overall violence. With the modest investment from Prudential Foundation and Victoria Foundation, NCST started out with 16 independent contractors. Our staff are primarily made up of, 100% of our staff are residents of the neighborhoods in which they serve, non-traditional leaders, ex-gang members, ex-convicts, folks who have transformed their lives and atoned for their wrongs to be able to service their community. We train them in conflict resolution, mediation strategies to intervene, to prevent, and treat violence through a public health frame. The work that we do, this work is now, from 16 independent contractors to now being the anchor nonprofit in the South Ward. 52 staff, a $6.5 million budget, and the work has been phenomenal and also very challenging. As you heard the mayor say, that tragedy is striking our communities all across the country. A couple of the initiatives that we launched, the Hospital-Based Violence Intervention Program, our Safe Passage Initiative that makes sure our kids go to school and come home safely, our South Ward Trauma Recovery Center. None of these interventions would be possible without the support of the governor. About 6 months ago, the governor convened community-based public safety activists from across the state and engaged us in a conversation about developing these complementary strategies or supporting these complementary strategies with law enforcement to reduce violence and crime in other cities. He committed $10 million. And this is, I mean, it's unprecedented, this investment that the governor has made. And so we're so grateful and thankful to you for your support, Governor. And so with that, I just want to say that it's the governor's leadership, that is making, our communities, our state safe. I was fortunate earlier this year to be a part of President Biden's Community Violence Intervention Collaborative, a 16 jurisdiction initiative that focuses on building the capacity of community violence intervention organizations as a complementary strategy to policing in cities across the country. And I say that New Jersey is leading that charge. With the type of investment that the governor has put forward, with his leadership, I think that we're going to make a huge impact in the state. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Governor Phil Murphy.
That's about as good as it gets, man. There's nothing I can say that's going to beat that yet. Wow. I just said to Akilah, there's nothing I can say that's going to top what that introduction. So be prepared to be let down. Jonathan Bush, thank you for welcoming us. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. I'm not name dropping. It's a true story. This summer, who do I see? Paul McCartney. He knows I'm the governor of New Jersey. And he says to me, by the way, how are things in Metuchen? That is a true story. And as the kids will know, as the Metuchenites will know, and Jonathan certainly knows, there was a picture of Paul McCartney walking down this street, I think randomly, about a year and a half or two ago. So anyway, he sends his best wishes. A huge thank you to Akilah Sherrills for that introduction, and far more importantly, Akilah, you're a great friend, and you are an extraordinary leader. And you are proving that when you get into the community, you can be, and you use smart, proven tools, you can prevent gun violence, and you're living proof of it in Newark, New Jersey, and now throughout the state. God bless you, man. Los Angeles, it lost is New Jersey's gain. So I'm incredibly honored to stand with so many who share in our broad commitment to enacting the common sense gun safety policies we need to make our streets and communities safer and to save lives. And I know when I'm with a lot of red T-shirts and some purple T-shirts, I'm in good company, and I am today. So I want to name a few folks in particular. In our administration, two important players, Acting Attorney General Andrew Bruck, and we'll hear from Andrew in a bit. Great to have you. The extraordinary Superintendent of the State Police, Colonel Pat Callahan. Partners in legislature, Middlesex County's own, and Akilah, your words were incredibly deeply felt, but it does take a village, and that begins with the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin, my partner. We also have Joanne Downey and Eric Hotelling are in here from Monmouth County, my county. We have Senator Pat Dagnan and Assemblyman Rob Karabinchak are with us. As I've said many times, you don't get to get into Middlesex County unless you can pronounce Karabinchak. I'm a past master. And in absentia, other leaders who could not be here today. And I want to acknowledge folks like Senator Linda Greenstein, Majority Leader, certainly Senator Loretta Weinberg, Assembly Majority Leader, as Craig knows well, has been a champion on gun safety, Lou Greenwald. There are other sponsors of the collection of bills that we're going to talk about today who are not here in the Senate. It's Joe Cryan, Nia Gill, Vin Gopal, and another sponsor who's not with us today in the Assembly. I spoke to her actually a couple of days ago about this, Valerie Veneri Huddle. I also want to give Jennifer Berry Gonzalez a shout out. She's wearing a red T-shirt representing Moms Demand Action. We're going to hear from her in a bit. And the fight would not be what it is without moms and the tremendous gun safety allies from the likes of Brady, Giffords, Newark Street Team, everybody. Bill Castro, are you here? Bill, thank you for your leadership, man. Chairman Kevin McCabe, Gary Taffet, our friend, Vice Chair Beatrice Moskowitz is here. Clerk Nancy Pinkin. Nancy, nice to see you. Surrogate Clarabelle Cortez has joined us. I also want to give a shout out to two folks on my team, Deputy Chief of Staff Deb Kornavaca and Director of Public Engagement Brianna Earl. I've just been told if I acknowledge anyone else, the list of people who I'm not acknowledging will be shorter than the list of people I have acknowledged. But to everybody here, including faith leaders, deep appreciation for everyone's being here. Sad note that has nothing to do with this. 2 nights ago, I just found out this morning, Tom Cosentino passed away, Craig, who was the head of the Garden State Wine Growers Association. I just spoke with his wife and 2 sons coming in here. He was a giant. New Jersey's got an incredible and growing and really cool wine industry, and Tom was the head of the association. He's a dear friend. Keep him and his family in your prayers. And as Pat Callahan would want me to note, we're still in the fight against this pandemic. We got 1,055 folks in the hospital. Sadly announced 12 more losses of life confirmed. 166 people went in just yesterday. Thankfully, 154 walked out. The spot positivity rate is now just hovering between 9 and 10%. So folks, please God, if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you are, get boosted. And if you're inside, I don't have it on me, Craig's got a mask. If you're inside and you're not sure what the vaccine status is of other folks, please wear a mask. So please, with that, let's get back to why we're here today. Over the past 4 years, all of us working together, and as I said, this is truly in the category of it takes a village, reasserted New Jersey's principled leadership in the national fight for gun safety. We reestablished ourselves as the quintessential gun safety state. This is something in which we take tremendous pride. For 4 years, we remained vigilant, we persevered, and yes, we proved that we have the guts to stand firm against the entrenched gun lobby. We proved that common sense gun safety laws work, that keeping guns out of the wrong hands works, and in doing so, we disproved the politics of some who believe that the answer to gun violence is just to flood our communities with more guns. And we gather today, as Jonathan noted, while nearly halfway across the country, families in Michigan are grappling with the grief and horror that their children are no longer with them because a 15-year-old bent on inflicting harm and terror and with easy access to a gun was able to take a firearm into school. Those children should all be alive today. Their peers should not be dealing with the after effects of their school's hallways being in a gunman's crosshairs. And as if that is not enough, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, is considering a case brought by those who want to invalidate tight and common sense restrictions on concealed carry in states like ours. This is a direct threat to the safety of residents from gun violence brought up by people who don't live in New Jersey, who don't know our communities, and who have never listened to the families who know all too well the horrible toll of streets awash in hidden guns. It flies in the face of the values that so many of our fellow New Jerseyans hold, and it is literally on the docket as we speak in Washington. We have to act, and we have to act now. We must make enacting the next wave of common sense gun safety laws one of our top priorities in the remaining days of the current legislative session. This session expires at noon on January 11th. Today is December 2nd. We have 40 days with which to work and in which to act. For the sake of our communities and our people, I know there's nothing that we cannot do. So here is what is on our to-do list for the next 6 weeks. 1, requiring, and by the way, this is all under the category of common sense. This is not an attack on the Second Amendment. This is common sense gun safety laws. So, first up to bat, requiring anyone applying for a firearm purchaser card to first complete a certified safety course. How radical is that? You can't get a darn driver's license without proving you know how to drive a car. Why do we ask less when it comes to a gun? And like your driver's license, your firearm purchaser card should also expire after 4 years and require the holder to actively renew it. Again, let's just put some common sense back into the process. And while we're at it, we must close the loophole that allows those moving into New Jersey to skirt the procedures that established New Jersey residents must follow in order to qualify to purchase or obtain firearms. Again, for simple fairness, we must have one law for everybody, and that's Bill number 2. Third, simply making it common sense law that all guns not in use be stored securely in a lockbox or gun safe. By the way, overwhelmingly, the responsible gun owners in our state already view this as second nature. But second nature still leaves loopholes. And sadly, I must note that Michigan has no safe storage law on its books and is now facing the worst possible consequences. In this regard, we must lead. Fourth, mandate that all handguns sold in New Jersey be equipped with micro-stamping technology that leaves a one-of-a-kind imprint on every round of ammunition fired, a veritable license plate that can trace a specific round back to a specific gun. And while we're at it, let's require electronic record keeping of all ammunition sold in New Jersey. This is number 5, by the way. Law enforcement, as Pat will attest to, shouldn't have to cull through binders of handwritten pages when investigating a shooting or a report of an unusual amount of ammo being purchased by one person. This information should be immediately available through a simple point and click. Sixth, let's once and for all ban the sale of .50 caliber firearms. Let's stop the charade that these weapons have any place in our communities. For number 7, while we are doing everything we can to prevent our kids the trauma of a school shooting, we cannot unwittingly expose them to trauma through unregulated mock shooter exercises. Let's ensure a common set of rules so drills are conducted to minimize stress and emotional damage to the very students they mean to protect. And finally, number 8, I ask my partners with great humility to send to my desk a bill creating a public nuisance cause of action law to hold gun manufacturers and distributors alike responsible for the damage caused by firearms. Here's our reality. That sounds really technical, but the likes of Bill Kastner and others will tell you this is a game changer if we get this on the books. Here's the reality that underpins this last one. Fully 80+%, Pat, I believe, of the guns used to commit crimes in New Jersey come from out of state, and overwhelmingly from states whose gun laws are weaker than the paper that they're printed on. The U.S. Constitution won't allow us to hold those states accountable for their lax laws, but it can allow us to hold manufacturers accountable for their actions that continue to allow guns to flow across our border and into our neighborhoods. And let me just put a number on what the magnitude of this. Since April 15th, there have been 782 shootings in New Jersey, covering 1,004 shooting victims, including, tragically, 180 of whom who lost their lives. You can take it to the bank that the majority of the guns used in these crimes came from out of state. Akil, you'll back me up on that, right? This is the absolute reality in our state. Now, let me step back and say some of these needed gun safety measures have already begun to move through the legislature, and that's great news. But this isn't one of those times where just getting a bill, and I know Craig believes this and his colleagues, getting a bill through committee or even one house of the legislature, getting it done, that we can declare victory. We know the gun lobby won't stop until they have their victory, and that is to keep these bills from getting to my desk. Let's commit, all of us together, that's why we're here today, to getting these bills on my desk, so surrounded by many of the leaders here, I can sign them into law. In fact, you're all invited. How's that sound? Especially the students. I say especially the students in all seriousness. Yeah, this matters for our generation. This is really for your generation in the future. This is New Jersey, folks. We take pride. Amen. We take pride in being a national leader on gun safety, and we are not going to back down. We got 40 days to get it done. Let's come together in common purpose to get this done. Thank you all again so much, Jonathan, for hosting us so graciously, to all of the folks, leaders, advocates, faith leaders, students, and everybody here. With that, please help me welcome an extraordinary leader, my partner in governing, the Speaker of the General Assembly, Middlesex County's own, Craig Coughlin.
Thank you, Governor. Let's hear it for Governor Phil Murphy. Thank you, Mayor Bush. Thank you all for coming out. It's a beautiful day. I guess we were all supposed to be here, right? And it's an incredible turnout. I want to especially thank all those young people who came out. I don't think, well, heck, you got out of class, so that's good. But the truth be told, you came because you cared. And as the governor points out, this is more for you, well, as much for you as anybody else. Because it is you who are too often the victims of these things, as we just saw in Michigan. Too often, this month is a tragic month as we celebrate Sandy. No, we don't celebrate, but we memorialize Sandy Hook, right, on December 14th. And 2 years ago, right here in New Jersey, the Kosher Deli in Jersey City, where 5 people lost their lives because of that. Tuesday, we saw it in Michigan. We're proud in New Jersey, and we ought to be, of the fact that we have the most tough, common sense gun safety laws. But still, and you know the numbers probably better than I do, 445 people die each year in New Jersey on average, and 1,398 get wounded. Now, by national standards, that's great. By ours, if you compare it against our standard against the nation's, that's good. By our standards, that means we failed 1,843 people, and we need to change that. We need to continue to keep the fight going. The United States is the greatest nation in the world. But one of the things that we shouldn't be proud of is that people die at the hands of gun violence 25 times higher than any other high-income country in the world. And we have done a good job, I think, here in New Jersey. We've continued to have gun safety rules again and again. In 2018, we passed things to reduce magazine capacity, banned armor-piercing bullets, raised the bar from handgun permits, expanded background checks, and in 2019 we continued on with leadership from people like Pat and Joanne and Eric and Rob and my colleagues in the Senate, and of course the Majority Leader, who's done just a terrific job. Lou Greenwell's been a real champion of this cause. But we've come to as we continue to fight, we understand that about 80% of the guns, as the governor points out, come from places outside of New Jersey. And the bills that we're talking about today, as you all heard, as the governor enumerated, are just common sense things, right? You have to have a gun safety thing. As the governor, as the governor pointed out, most people who are responsible do it already. Asking those who are not to focus on the fact that this is going to protect their children and their family and the people who go to school with them. Closing loopholes to ensure that legally guns outside the state get properly recorded when they come here. I don't think that's a lot to ask. We expect people to have their driver's license, as the governor pointed out, be renewed. Why not have your gun permit renewed as well? And then, of course, the things that will probably have the most meaningful thing. Now, there are always going to be people who work around the system, right? And so people will buy illegal ammunition. That doesn't mean we don't make rules to track the things that we can track, to fight the fights that we can fight, and to try to continue to make New Jersey safer and better, and honor those 1,800 people a year that we fail. We need to change that, and we can do that. And the bills that that the governor was talking about, enumerated for all of us today, are a way to get started. I'm proud to be here today with the governor, with these other great leaders, and support this effort. New Jersey deserves the best we can be. We try it in every field. Let's not fail in gun safety violence. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.
Craig, I know you got to go because you've got sessions in Trenton, and I want to thank, let's hear it again for the Speaker of the General Assembly, Craig Coughlin. So it takes a village, as we've been saying, especially on gun safety, and that includes Craig and his leadership and other outstanding legislators. And here, speaking on behalf of those outstanding legislators, please help me welcome down from my county, Assemblywoman Joanne Downey.
It's a little hard to see with the sun, but it's great to be out here with all of you. And I want to say, first, thank you for letting me be here. Thank you, Governor. Thank you also to Mayor Bush, to our Acting Attorney General, who I'm so happy to meet over here today, to you, Akila, to you for Moms Demand Action. You've all been amazing supporters. Thank you to the superintendent. Thank you so much for all that you do to help protect us, keep us safe. You know, one of the things I just want to remind people is that my dad was in the state police. So I take this all extremely seriously for many reasons. One, I understand law enforcement's aspect of it, and I want to protect law enforcement as well as everybody else. And I think one of the hardest things that I had to deal with some of this legislation is from law enforcement, and I want to make sure that I extend to them, you know, the feeling and hopefully the understanding to them that this isn't about punishing law enforcement in terms like the safe storage bill. The safe storage bill that I have, I'm the primary sponsor of, and I have as my second sponsor over here, my Assemblymate Eric Hotelling, and there's also John McKeon, who's a third sponsor, and we have Annette Chaparro, Assemblywoman Chaparro, as a co-sponsor. The reason why it's out there is to make sure we're keeping the guns out of the hands of the wrong people. The wrong people, right? What is terrible about that? My dad, when I was growing up with my dad in Freehold Township, a very conservative county, let me tell you, we made sure, and I know, and when I say we, I mean he made sure that his 4 kids never saw his guns. We never, ever saw his guns. They were locked away in a place where we didn't know, but he had access. He knew how to get them, and he could get them quick, and he was not concerned whatsoever about being able to get access. And more important, something that even made it very clear to him how important it was that every now and then, when he had to clean them at the house, he made sure all of us were out of the house. And it was a good thing one time, because when he was doing it, there was a bullet still in the gun, and it went, luckily he didn't get hurt, it went through the basement. So again, just to remind people, even the best people who are well-versed in how to take care of their guns can also have things like accidents like that happen. And that's why it's so important to keep anyone who shouldn't have that, whether it be a child, someone who's considering suicide, and that could be, again, a child or an adult, people who are just not having the ability because of mental health issues or whatever else is going on in their lives. We don't want those people to gain quick access to a firearm. Look at Michigan, right? I mean, there's so many examples, but I think it's just so telling that we just had to face what happened in Michigan and know that it can happen anywhere. And so I pray for all of those people there. And my heart goes out to all of the parents, all of the people who work there, all the law enforcement there, because it hurts everyone in a community. And we don't want that heartbreak for any community. We don't want it here, right? So in my community, there was one, I mean, we didn't have the park, the Parkland. We didn't have something like Newtown. Thank God. We don't want that. There was an incident close by in my district where a 16-year-old was trying to kill one of his peers. And instead, he wound up then, I believe, shooting a 10-year-old and killing a 10-year-old boy instead. That's horror. I mean, these are, again, things that should not have happened. He should not have had access to that gun. So, when I say these things, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. And knowing from the law enforcement aspect, as well as being a mom of a 10-year-old and an 11-and-a-half-year-old to go to school, and I worry about them every single day. Every day, especially as things get more and more stressful in our society, and we see the divisiveness, and we try to maintain calmness, and I try to remind people, even people who I have as clients as an attorney, I hear it in their voices, financial stresses, other things that are going on, political stresses, whatever it might be going on, people who've died in their lives and they just can't handle it. And I try to explain to them, breathe. Let's take a breath, let's take a moment. And again, these bills, that's what hopefully a lot of this does, is helps you take those moments to stop some really bad things that can happen and you can never turn the time back. So we have some of the toughest gun laws in our nation. I thank you, Governor Murphy, for all that you have done, and thank you to the Assembly Majority Leader Greenwald for all he has done, and for all the advocates here who have continued to push on with all of this. And I thank you for all your help in crafting the legislation, because we did work hard on it to make sure that it was better and less punitive. We wanted it to be more about lessons learned, right, and trying to help educate. So the gun safety package that we have with 85787 will provide law enforcement with the proper tools also to become more efficient in identifying the specific firearm through which the actual bullet has come from. That technology is amazing, and that's going to help so much. So I really, truly appreciate the fact that we're going to move forward and better reduce gun violence that way. And the other part, we already talked about the other 5647 with the safe storage, but that would just to remind everybody, you have to keep the gun separately stored from the ammunition. Again, trying to put some time in between, right? Give that time. Owning a firearm for protection in the home can present such a substantial obstacle to safe firearm storage. And with individuals often opting to keep weapons loaded and easily accessible, I'm just happy to stand with my colleagues and all of you to push for common sense gun legislation in the next coming weeks, because these grave mistakes that have happened and occurred, and in many homes and in many places throughout our country, as well as here, should never ever happen, should never ever have to happen again. It's clear we could be doing more for our citizens, and I really am so proud to stand with a legislature and a governor who really has the goals to make sure that this happens. So I thank you, all of you, and thank you to all of you, and let's move on, Governor.
Thank you, Joanne. Outstanding. Joanne mentioned the tragedy in Michigan. Several of us have, and the tension in schools. And I just want to remind everybody, educators are a big reason why we got the #1 public education system in America. And representing the American Federation of Teachers in New Jersey, Donna Chair is with us. Donna, great to have you. Please help me welcome another outstanding leader, the Chief Law Enforcement Officer in the state of New Jersey, the Acting Attorney General, Andrew Bruck.
Thank you, Gov, for having me here and also for your leadership on this. And thank you to all of the legislators and advocates who have been such incredible partners on this. We're just so grateful for everything that you've done. Look, I started my career in government as a violent crime prosecutor in Newark. And so I have seen how gun violence devastates families and communities. I know the pain that they felt as a result of gun violence. And I feel so incredibly honored to now lead an office where I have the opportunity to help those victims, not just in individual cases, but on a statewide basis. And one of the commitments that I've made to this governor, and that I make to all of you here today, is that when you give the Attorney General's office the tools to combat gun violence, we use them. In 2018, this governor signed a law criminalizing ghost guns. And within months, we were out there getting those weapons, those incredibly, incredibly dangerous weapons, off the streets. Earlier this year, the governor signed a budget putting $10 million into community-based violence intervention programs, as Akila talked about. And we are, as we speak, soliciting applications for those grant funds so that we can get the money out into the communities as quickly as possible. And that commitment to action applies to this gun package as well. Because this gun package has embedded in it some incredibly, incredibly powerful tools. And if you give our office, if you give law enforcement the tools, we will use them. I can assure you that if the legislature passes it, if the governor signs it, we will use those tools. We will use them effectively and comprehensively. We'll use them in compliance with the Constitution, because that is how we honor the victims of gun violence. And that is how we protect the residents of this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So well done. And you make a very fair point. It is getting the laws passed and signed are necessary steps, but not sufficient. Execution, using those laws as to the fullest extent possible, is that key step. So thank you for all of your comments and leadership. Last but not least, representing the extraordinary advocates with us today and from around the state, please help me welcome legislative lead for Moms Demand Action. Any moms out there? Just checking. Jennifer Berry Gonzalez. Jennifer.
Hi. I just wanted to first thank Governor Murphy for coming here today and for his leadership combating the epidemic of gun violence. As a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, a grassroots movement of Americans fighting for public safety measures to protect people from gun violence, and as a mother of 4 young children who are here today, here in Middlesex County, I am so thankful to call him my governor. I also wanted to thank our acting attorney general and our legislators here today who have made fighting gun violence a priority. Daily, unrelenting, horrific gun violence is a uniquely American crisis. Once again, our hearts break for yet another community impacted by yet another horrific act of gun violence in an American school. Firearms are now the first leading cause of death among children and teens in the United States, the first leading cause of death. This is not happening in any other high-income country, and we don't have to continue tolerating this. While we know that nationwide solutions are needed to address this crisis, there's also so much we can do right here at home to save lives. New Jersey has some of the strongest and best gun laws in the country, but it's also important to note that New Jersey has some of the lowest rates of gun violence and gun deaths in the country. And these are not independent coincidences. Gun safety laws save lives. New Jersey has shown that you can help prevent gun violence with common sense gun safety measures and save lives while also protecting the right to lawful, responsible gun ownership. And while we're proud to be the model for the nation, we still experience rates of gun violence not experienced anywhere else in the developed world. We are still impacted by the policies of other states, by guns being trafficked from other states into our communities. Here in New Jersey, while the rate of gun violence is lower than in other states, as we've heard, still more than 1,800 people are shot and killed or wounded every single year. As a mother, I'm heartbroken over preventable gun deaths that occur from guns not being stored securely away from children. Over 80% of child firearm suicides involve a gun belonging to a parent or a relative. Also, over 80% of shooters involved in gunfire on school grounds are under 18 years old, and as we've seen time and time again, obtain their guns from home or from the homes of a relative or friend. That's why I support strengthening our firearm storage laws and educating the public about the importance of storing firearms and ammunition securely. As a mother, I'm also concerned with our children's well-being in school and support ensuring that any drills conducted at school are age-appropriate and paired with trauma-informed support for students. As a mother, as a resident of the state, and as a human, I'm heartbroken over the lives we continue to lose and the unacceptable number of fatal and non-fatal shootings that go unsolved, particularly in our cities. That's why new technologies like microstamping and modernizing our record keeping on ammunition and firearm sales are so important. These systems can provide critical tools for law enforcement to reduce gun crimes and prevent the trafficking of guns into our communities in the first place. We also want to see the bad actors within the firearms industry held accountable for the conduct held accountable for the conduct that has helped drive the epidemic of gun violence in our state. As a mother, I'm in this fight because I don't want to see my children or yours grow up with the constant fear of gun violence. In a world where they know that kids just like them continue to have their lives brutally cut short because the adults failed to act and the adults failed to implement policies to keep them safe. Here in New Jersey, we want to see policies enacted that demonstrate our values. We care about our children's futures, we care about each other, and we care about making our communities safer. We are calling on lawmakers to continue to set an example for the nation by passing this comprehensive package of common sense gun safety bills. Moms Demand Action volunteers and the gun violence prevention community will be by your side in this fight, urging that the Gun Safety 3.0 bill package is passed as soon as possible, which will help save lives and make our state a safer place. Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you to you and the moms and all the advocates, Brady, Giffords, others here. Cannot thank you enough. As they say in Hollywood, it's a wrap. Mayor Jonathan Bush, thank you. Akila Cheryl, thank you for everything. Speaker Coughlin in absentia. Joanne, to you and your legislative colleagues. Acting Attorney General Andrew Bruck, Jennifer Berrier Gonzalez, all the advocates, Colonel, Chairman, and to all the hosts here, both in Metuchen and Middlesex County. Thank you all. Let's go get it.